Poetry is poetry, but poetry is always evolving. Welcome to another adventure in Guyanese literature, and let's also welcome a champion, the Guyana Prize for Literature Slam Poetry Champion. Hello, how are you?
Hi, Petamber. I am amazing and
Good,
delighted to be here. Thank you so much
good.
for extending the invitation. I'm honored. Thank you.
You welcome. How did you get involved in poetry? I mean, it's like a dying craft, but as I said earlier, it's evolving.
Yeah.
So, how did a youth get involved in poetry?
So I have been writing from a tender age,
Mm.
but it started with writing songs, jingles. It didn't start out with poetry until about the age of 12, 13. I had migrated to Trinidad and Tobago at that time. And one day my sister sent me a video of a spoken word, Brave Voices. It's a competition in the United States. And the topic was on relationship, a young woman expressing her pain through that art form. And I can't recall if I was going through a high school breakup at that time, but the piece certainly resonated with
Mm-hmm,
me,
mm-hmm,
and I
mm-hmm.
learned it from start to finish. And from that piece, I was then introduced to the Two Cents movement, which is a movement in Trinidad that that poets speak about social issues through spoken word. And I gravitated to that. There was one titled Minibus Men Tracking Schoolgirls, and the culture is so similar from Trinidad to Tobago, and I could relate to it from, living in Guyana and then there. So I learned that verbatim as well. And I remember one time when I actually started writing, though, I was in about third or fourth form, and at that time, the two islands, Trinidad and Tobago, they were having a bit of upheaval as it
Mm.
relates to the oil, and Tobago wanting its own autonomy. And we had a free period, and I just sat in class and I started writing what was happening through poetry.
Mm, mm,
And I
mm.
shared it with one of my friends, and she was like, "Oh, you come, Jamicia can write poems." Jamicia can write poems, and that's when the writing for the poetry really
So,
started for
mm,
me,
mm,
and it took off from there.
yeah. You mentioned 2 cents. Add your 2 cents now too. I mean, there are a lot of themes. As I said, poetry is poetry. Poetry is evolving. The themes are there. You know, love, hate, identity, moving from place to place. Especially in your situation, moving from place to place. Right. Add your 2 cents to, I think, International Women's Day is around the corner. You could add your 2 cents to that.
There's this piece I wrote, I think it's in 2020, titled Judas Iscariot. And so I'm going to perform that for you. One a penny, two a penny, hot cross buns. One a penny, two a penny, you are Judas Iscariot. Carrying her from across borders and seas, but see, contrary to popular belief, slavery never ended. Instead, like a serpent, she recreated herself into a system that allows you to profit from the world while losing your soul. You sold sisters for sex for no less than one a penny, two a penny, hot cross buns. One a penny, two a penny, you are Judas Iscariot. Oh, Judas Iscariot, you should have been carrying the title of prince to a king. Instead, you carry the title of trafficker. Having immersed yourself in the form of modern slavery, human trafficking, you trafficked her. Oh, Judas, you were meant to be a prince to a king, but they say you attract that which you fear, and she feared mathematics so much she became a statistic, adding to the number in tips. As the years go by, the numbers continue to skyrocket. this is greater than slavery, and the pain and the torture she endured is no less than signs of the end times, where we are surrounded by Judases, mothers selling their souls while selling their daughters into prostitution and child marriage, and the fathers who attempt to liberate their families become trapped in gold mines and pits. We do not need Christopher Columbus to voyage from the grave in which his bones decay to rediscover that slavery still exists, when we are surrounded by Judases who continues to sell our boys and girls or males and females for one a penny, two a penny.
Wow, that wasn't 2 cents. That was dollar. Oh my. So much in that. So much. You've covered so much ground
Yeah.
in that. Amazing. Let's get into the mind, working on these pieces. The triggers, the influences. Let's talk influences on your work. I mean, you open with by telling us two pieces of influences. What other writer or poet influenced your work?
So moving back to, as I said, my poetry started in Tobago, but it catapulted when I returned to Guyana. And I think my church had a huge role to play in that, in creating the opportunity for me to constantly perform. And so a lot of my pieces,
Lovely.
yes, a
Yeah.
lot of my pieces I performed occasionally at my church. And so the influences mean is, I would say, the Bible influence my pieces. So when you hear most of the work that I do, you would always have a biblical reference in my work. And then too, I was surrounded by poets at my church: Marissa
Wow.
Stewart, who is currently in Jamaica, Tandika Austin, Shondell France. And so they were my
Wow.
community who just encouraged me to write more. And as I said, the Bible has been a huge influence in how I'm able to craft my pieces, but also social issues as well. I think I'm now getting to that place, thanks to the Guyana Literature Festival, that it really opened my mind as to how I can become a better writer, and also
Yeah.
reading more work. I don't have to isolate myself to just my work, but there's an adventure of there's a plethora of mentors out there in the form of books that I can learn from and be inspired by.
We'll turn to books just now, but two things I want to pick up on. That community of writers, poets that you had around you, and also the platform, the opening, the church. There was enough opening enabling you to continue. Well, soon you'll be doing what? Turning your poetry to music, to putting your poetry in the book form, right?
Yes, I actually started. Let me tell you, I can't say how grateful I am for the reinstatement of the Guyana Prize for Literature. I've been able to learn so much over the weekend of activities that were
Great.
had, and it reignited a passion for me and reminded me that, hey,
Wow.
Jamicia, you're talented.
Yeah, you see, we
That
talk about community just now, community
yes,
of poets.
that you're talented, that you have the ability to take this to a
Another
whole
level.
different realm, to
Wow.
another level. And the final week of the prize for literature, there's a competition on Monday. I received an email inviting me to a competition, but of course I needed to submit a body of work. However, a lot of my spoken word pieces, they are quite lengthy. So I wanted to try writing traditional poetry per se. And so
Did that curb your emotion or your flow? I mean,
it's it pushed me.
talk to me. Yeah.
It pushed me because being so used to writing and expressing your full thought with of 2 pages of work or 7 minutes of work, sometimes my poetry would extend to bringing it down a bit, concising the work 1 minute or 2 minutes. And it was me testing my skills, testing my abilities, and I was able to write 5 new pieces within 48 hours in time for that submission. And I'm not talking about spoken word, I'm talking about
The
traditional
written
poetry,
poetry.
written poetry. And that is, as I said, because of the community that I was surrounded with. I had Ms. Vanda aiding and critiquing my work. I had Stephanos, who was on the panel
Yes,
for
yes.
the Prize for Literature, there critiquing my work and helping me to improve it. And so that community is really important, not for myself, but but for fellow writers and persons in the literature industry.
Yeah. All right, a challenge now. One of your longer pieces, condense it. When I host performances, if it's a long poem or a long short story, I will ask you to tell us the story and read parts that will tickle the imagination, right? Because some people you ask them to read for 5 minutes and they go on and on and on, and it disrupts, it takes away from the event. So the challenge now, one of your longer poems, give us a piece of it, the story and a piece of it.
You're testing me on live camera, Petamber. All right. Um, Another one. So this piece focuses on domestic violence, not only in Guyana, but around the world and the Caribbean region. It's entitled Another One. This was the winning piece. Let me see now how I'm able to condense this on the spot. All right. Here's my story. Living in a country whose motto quotes one people, one nation, one destiny, yet seemingly the only time we unite is for bacchanal, and our destiny seem to include recording a brawl, whether it's for a like, view, comment, or share for the things we were once taught are morally wrong. See, one day I stood in my yard and watched as my neighbor pounced on his lady friend. Neighbors from both sides of the streets were being entertained as though it's Netflix and chill. As his chill hands curved around her neck, I stood there in awe, helpless. And as I was about to intervene, my then 16-year-old sister screamed, "Sis, stay inside, don't get in." And mommy yelled, "Girl, get your tail inside or don't come back in." And as the anger within me boiled, I questioned whether those were the words of the neighbors. Yeah, my neighbors, when daddy made it his hobby to occasionally disfigure the body of his wife and mother of 6. One is dead, so now 5 children. What a remarkable example, our fathers often said, cause my only brother had turned out to be an abuser too. And though I prayed without ceasing that he would cease and desist from causing bodily harm to another woman's child, I stood and watched as he wrapped his arm around the throat of the mother of his child. I got tired of reporting him myself, thanks to a system that refuses to accept third-party statements.
Wow, another mouthful. I mean, what can you say to something as graphic as that? If we should analyze that, look at how much has gone into it. Your sister pulling you back, your mother's pulling you back, the neighbors are being entertained, and it's happening for real.
Yeah.
When will it stop? When will it stop? What about some lighter pieces? I'm sure there are lighter pieces that
Yes.
make you smile. We must mix it up.
Yes, of course. For those, I'll have to go to my phone. So, there's this one titled "Inflation," and it's written in Creole.
Oh, lovely. Before you go, I like poetry is about playing with words,
Yes.
playing with language, and I love to hear your Creoles.
Let me see how good it is. Let me see. Okay. Bye. Cause the living competing for get title of virgin. Cause right now things tight, tight, tight. As the government increase with salary, the vendors ain't taking left at all, at all, at all. Now, the prices are twice more than before, but the value is less than what it used to be. Almost 16 US dollar for one tray of egg. A golden fowl must lay the egg. Cause this is equal to bordering poverty.
Before I stop laughing, give me another one.
Ah, okay.
That well. That well. I love that.
Let me see. Home alone, drowning in the deafening silence, like lightning.
You can
Jeep.
start it from the top. Start from
Okay.
the top. I will get rid of it.
Okay. Home alone, drowning in the deafening silence, like lightning. GPL strikes again. It's blackout until a sudden noise erupts like the La Souffriere. Bang! I spun around. Bang! It's crescendoing. Bang, bang, bang! Consumed by trepidation. Unable to tell where it's coming from, my body paused, breathing muted. A final bang! Or so I thought. An attempt to peep my head through the window for a sign of the song's origin. Bang! It strikes again. This time my body is unfrozen, swaying like the wind. And it was then I realized all along the sound was erupting from within. The voices in my head were competing for my attention. And that piece is entitled Silence.
Yeah, I like that. But writing is a solitary, so solitary you can't begin to describe it. And I think that is why writers are not fully respected because most of the work is done home alone.
Yeah.
Home alone, well, wherever it is, in the office, in the park, or whatever, it's you alone, listening to that voice inside here.
Yeah.